All right, students, we're going to be graphing tangent today. So we're going to graph y equals tangent of theta. And what we're going to do is just focus on the graph right now and then focus on how we shift it. Okay, so we're going to start with some stuff you already know from previous classes or previous videos. By definition, tangent is sine over cosine. That's how it's defined. There's nothing to explain there other than that's the definition. That is always what it is. You can also think of it in terms of opposite over adjacent, in terms of this triangle here. But as we've seen with the unit circle, every point, the adjacent side is the same as cosine, and the opposite side is the same as sine. Why is the unit circle useful here? Two things. This whole graph is going to have asymptotes when cosine is 0. Well, when is cosine 0? Well, when you're at the 0 on the unit circle, your coordinates are 1, 0. All right. When you go up to here, your coordinates are 0, 1. Over here, your points would be -1, 0, and down here, 0, -1. And again, that's because it's a unit circle. It's a one-unit circle. So what we're concerned with is, when does cosine equal 0? When would the x-coordinate be 0? Well, as we go around here, there's two locations where this happens. Right there and right there. So if you're straight up or straight down, those are the locations of your zeros. Sorry, pause for a second there. Those are the locations of your zeros. Okay, so what does that mean? That means for our graph, at pi over 2, we got a problem. It can't exist there. There's got to be an asymptote there. Okay. So, oops, sorry, I didn't realize you can't see that. There it is. There's our asymptote right at pi over 2. Okay. If we back up a step, go back to 0 here, let's think about the unit circle and think about the tangent. Here's what's going on with this. Okay. Tangent, let's write it again, this time as opposite and adjacent. Okay. That opposite and adjacent thing is really not much different from slope with rise and run. In fact, it's exactly the same thing. Let's move that over so you can see it. Now let's think in terms of that. When we put our pencil at 0 degrees, it's a flat line with 0 slope. As we tilt, as we tilt it, the ratio changes. The opposite and adjacent change, or the rise and the run changes. In terms of slope, it goes from 0 slope and then gets steeper and 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 steeper as we get up to 90 degrees, or that's the same as pi over 2. So in terms of this, as we go up here, the tangent is going to increase as we get closer to pi over 2. So at 0, the slope is 0. Okay. And again, you can see that from the unit circle. Because sine over cosine would be 0 over 1, which would be 0. In terms of rise over run, at 0, your rise would be 0, so your slope would be 0. So 0, 0 is our starting point. And as we tilt more and more degrees, we're getting steeper and steeper and steeper. So it's kind of weird because we're recording the side lengths in a triangle, but our graph is then shooting up like an exponential graph almost. Okay. Now take a look. Here's the key thing. What if you went backwards from 0? Well, backwards in terms of this, if we tilt it downwards, then our slope is negative. So if we go down towards a negative angle, it's the same thing. So if we rotate this direction, the slope will be getting bigger and bigger, but towards negative infinity. Let's shift that so you can see that. All right. And then once again, if we rotate down here to -90, well, your line's going to be straight up and down. that's undefined slope. So at negative 90 or negative pi over 2, it will be undefined as well. Okay, so that's what's going on with this thing. It goes between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. And as you rotate this way, it's getting, whoops, tilt this here. As you rotate this way, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Till when you're vertical, it's undefined slope. So at 90, there is no slope. It's undefined. So that's why we have an asymptote. Okay. The other reason, like we said, the reason it has an asymptote is at this point, your coordinates are 0, 1. That's your cosine and your sine. And since tangent is sine over cosine, we'd have 1 over 0, which is undefined. All right. So that's that. Hopefully this helps with tangent a little bit. The next video, what we'll show you is part 2. What do you do when it's like something like this? What do you do when you have something inside? And it turns out it's no different than what our method from before. So click on the link for that one, and that'll help you with the homework, hopefully. All right. Good luck and bring lots of questions to class, and we'll make sure it's all clear.